On St. Paddy's Day a pint you may be craving, but this holiday a B-movie we be braving. Lock your doors and keep the drips down, for tonight Mama be conjuring up all the gory details on Leprechaun.
You can talk? And you're Irish?
Aye.
Merry meet, witches! I'm Gory B Movie, and this is All the Gory Details, the show that deep dives into B-movies like tonight's feature, Leprechaun. You're probably familiar with this story. To quote IMDb, it's about an evil, sadistic leprechaun that goes on a killing rampage in search of his beloved pot of gold. There's a lot wrong with this description. For one, Lep doesn't care about the pot. I mean, he cares about pot, just not that kind.
A friend with weed is a friend indeed.
He doesn't care if the gold is in a pot or a bag or in a box with a fox. He just wants all 100 pieces accounted for. 2. Is he really evil or sadistic? Since when is it evil or sadistic to want your property returned to you? Sounds like someone's been spinning lies to the media, and I know just who's to blame. Jennifer Aniston. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we delve deep into this tale of an innocent shoemaker who must fight to reclaim his worldly goods after being falsely imprisoned, let's talk about how this movie came to be. Leprechaun was written and directed by Mark Jones. Jones wrote for a number of cartoons like Heathcliff, Mr. Magoo, Captain Caveman, and Yogi Bear, but his favorite was Scooby-Doo. Specifically, he wrote for Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo and the Scooby and Scrappy-Doo Puppy Hour. And don't leave me comments about how Scrappy is the most annoying Scooby-Doo character, because it's just not true. That would be flim-flam. Jones wanted to get into directing and decided that a low-budget horror movie would be the best way to break into film. You might have read that Leprechaun was adapted from a comic book from the 1980s or 1930s, but like so much of the trivia you will find online for this movie, that's just a myth. But don't you worry, I did my research. I'm giving you the real B true Hollywood story here. Jones saw a Lucky Charms commercial and realized that there weren't any St. Patrick's Day horror movies. He was also surprised that given their dark mythology that there had never been a scary leprechaun movie. Inspired by movies like Critters and Child's Play, he knew that tiny terrors could deliver big scares. Anyone that sees a kids commercial and thinks horror is my kind of people. Though I gotta wonder if the commercials are where he got the idea to give Leprechaun so many toys. Lucky has more escape vehicles than Batman.
Where does he get those wonderful toys?
Jones began writing the script in the late 80s. In 1989, the home video distributor Vidmark became Trimark. They were looking to build their company by expanding into theatrical films. Trimark passed on Leprechaun twice. Finally, it got into the hands of executive Mark Amin, who bought the script in 1990. He initially saw Leprechaun as a direct-to-video release, but it tested so well that it became the first in-house production to be released theatrically by Trimark. The script Trimark bought was a straight-up horror film. That was the movie that Amen wanted to make, but with each subsequent draft, Jones introduced more comedy. Jones drew from his background in cartoons. He always wanted to make an R-rated Scooby-Doo and injected that into his story. I don't know about you, but I'd still like to see him make a Scooby-Doo horror movie. Scooby-Doo meets the Leprechaun has a nice ring to it, and knowing that one of the writers of Scooby and Scrappy wrote Leprechaun makes that episode Luck of the Irish so much more enjoyable. The execs at Trimark weren't sure if they wanted to take a chance on Jones. They even offered him money to step down as director. Jones turned them down, saying that the only reason he wrote the script was to direct. He set out to prove himself. He had one of the scenes storyboarded and showed it to Trimark. The studio was impressed and gave him the job, but he was never really out of the woods. Trimark said they'd get rid of him if they didn't like the dailies 2 days in a row. The studio was also not sold on making a horror comedy. Their previous success with the distribution of Warlock had them convinced that a straight-up horror film was the way to go. They must have seen a different version of the movie than I did, because I think Warlock is hilarious. Amin said the movie was about 80% comedy, 20% horror, and he wanted to get it to about 50-50. Trimark also wasn't sure which rating they wanted to go for. They screen tested PG-13 and R-rated versions of the film, and the R rating performed better. So they had a few comedic scenes cut and ordered reshoots to amp up the gore factor. This made sense to Jones. He wanted this to be a horror movie for kids, and he knew they'd think a PG-13 movie would be too soft. He said that people still tell him that as kids they bought tickets to Muppet Christmas Carol just so they could sneak into Leprechaun when it was released in theaters. Jones was very involved in casting the movie. They were looking for little people to play the role of the Leprechaun, and someone suggested Warwick Davis from Willow. Jones didn't think such an accomplished actor would be interested in starring in his low-budget B movie. I mean, come on, the man was in Return of the Jedi. But he took a chance and sent the script to Davis's home in England. Davis read the script and was delighted at the prospect of playing a villain. The actor had been going through a dark time. He hadn't worked in 7 or 8 months and was at a point where he wasn't sure if he wanted to continue acting. Shortly after receiving the script, his newborn son Lloyd passed away. Devastated, Davis thought the change of scenery could be therapeutic for him and his wife Sammy.
The work that I'd done prior to Leprechaun had always been playing good characters, heroes, and it was really great to see that this character was an evil, villainous character.
Davis flew out to LA to audition for Jones and Trimark. Davis compared it to the X Factor as all the people he was auditioning for were sitting behind a long table. Naturally, he nailed it and was offered the part.
I was just genuinely blown away.
The script Davis read was one of the more comedic drafts Jones had written. Davis said it was like a scary movie for a PG-13 audience. He shaped his portrayal of the character around this idea and played up the comedy in his performance. He was disappointed that the film ended up being rated R. He said it was difficult to go back and change the tone of his performance in reshoots. Had he known it was rated R from the start, he would have portrayed the character differently. But let's talk about the movie. The movie opens with my boy Lep, minding his own business and counting his gold coins. That rainbow shining on him is as clear an indicator as any that he's the hero of this picture. And if the Twilight movies are to be believed, all that glitter on him means that he's also a vampire. I kid, but it could happen. Jones has been trying to make a movie called Vamprechaun, about a leprechaun that is bitten by a vampire and becomes a hybrid of the two. Jones has had his ups and downs with financing, but he still wants to make the movie, ideally with Davis playing the title role. Lep's face is hidden in the shadows at the start of the film, leaving us to wait in
anticipation
for the full reveal of the character. And yeah, I'm gonna call him Lep. I know there are some comics that call him Lubden, but they're not canon, and according to my buddy Dead West, they're hot garbage.
This really should have been something else because this is not a Leprechaun story.
Jones wishes they would have consulted him on the name. In the script, the character was named Basil. At one point, there was going to be an old circus wagon with the name on it, but that was never shot. Anyway, we can't see Lep's face in this opening shot, but we do get a nice close-up of that sweet buckled shoe. Lep does not go cheap on his footwear.
Do you like the gold buckles on me shoes?
Davis said the shoes were essential to the character. The huge platforms were a challenge to walk in, but once he got it down, they gave him a distinctive gait. Davis said the shoes did more to get him into character than even the makeup. For that reason, he insisted on having the shoes in every Leprechaun movie he starred in. The score by Kevin Kiner is just the right mix of creepy and mischievous. It suits the movie perfectly. Kiner is still actively working as a composer today. You might have heard his music in Doom Patrol or Peacemaker. Then we meet Dan O'Grady. He's a bad dude. He's drunk, he just littered, and he clearly skinned a tribble to make that toupee. And that's not even the worst of it. Yeah, you guessed it. He stole the leprechaun's gold. Who does that? A charming aspect of this film is that nearly all of the background characters and bit parts are played by crew members. O'Grady's limo driver is stunt supervisor Cole McKay. McKay returned for Leprechaun 2 and went on to have a massive career. He worked on a number of horror flicks, everything from cult favorites like Demonic Toys, The Ice Cream Man, Wishmaster, and Jack Frost, to acclaimed hits like The Devil's Rejects and Cloverfield. Anyway, Lep shows up to make a nice pot of tea and ask about his gold. Then, rat bastard O'Grady pulls a gun and a frickin' clover on him.
Put it away!
Seriously, we need better clover control in this country. O'Grady shoots Lep, locks him in a crate, and places a 4-leaf clover on top to lock our boy in. Then he pours gasoline over it and is about to light a match when karma finally catches up to him and he keels over from a stroke. It's too bad he didn't just light that crate on fire. It would have burned the clover up and Lep could have escaped. But then I guess there wouldn't be a movie. Jones came up with a mythology that the only way to kill a leprechaun was with a 4-leaf clover. He wanted it to be like wooden stakes for vampires, and he was really disappointed that the mythology didn't carry over to the sequels. Cut to 10 years later and some southern ditty about 4-leaf clovers because you just know rednecks are clover crazy. Welcome to 90s New Mexico.
It's not New Mexico. It's North Dakota.
Like it matters. All I care about is not LA.
Actually, it is LA. The movie was shot in California, the interiors were filmed at Valencia Studios where Terminator 2 had just wrapped, and the exteriors were shot at Big Sky Ranch in Simi Valley. Famously, the ranch was a filming location for Little House on the Prairie. Davis said it felt a bit blasphemous to film a horror film there, but it wouldn't be the last. More recently, it was the location for Annabelle Creation. This is Tori Redding. She'll be spending the summer with her father, who just bought the O'Grady farm. She's played by Jennifer Aniston, who's apparently super famous, even though she's only been in one horror movie.
This is a joke, right?
Leprechaun was her first theatrical credit, and she almost didn't get it. The execs at Trimark wanted a blonde valley girl. Jones recognized that Aniston had star power from the moment he saw her audition, but he had to fight to get her the part. The studio finally gave in when Jones promised to have Aniston bleach her hair, which, of course, he never followed through on. Jones said that she was charming and easy to work with. Davis said she had a lot of ambition, and he knew she would be a breakout star someday. Tori's father is J.D., played by John Sandiford. There's not much to say about him. He was hired for his beard, then he shows up to set clean-shaven, and the director was like, "Dude, where's your beard?"
You're making too big a deal out of this, honey.
The beard you see on screen had to be created with makeup. Then we get to the big moral question of the movie.
You really think money's all you need to get by in this life?
Okay. I'll go with that theory.
I grant you, it's not all that complicated, but it is worth exploring. Tori is a materialistic, superficial teenager. Her primary character traits are not so dissimilar from Lep's. He's a bit of a fashionista himself. He's crazy about shoes, and he's singularly focused on gold. These characters are two sides of the same coin. The line that separates them is this question: can they find something other than money to motivate them? Anyway, Tori is about ready to nope right out of there when she bumps into discount Kevin Bacon. This is Nathan, played by Ken Olant. Unlike Miss Fancy Pants Aniston, I can actually name another movie that he's been in. He was Rob in April Fool's Day. Tori has spilled paint thinner all over Fakin' Bacon, and further driving the film's moral dilemma home, she tries to remedy the situation by throwing money at it.
But maybe you said you were sorry, it might.
Davis and makeup artist Gabe Bartelis affectionately nicknamed Olant Fashion Boy since he was able to look good even when covered in paint. The banter between these two is fun in a screwball comedy kind of way, but the most remarkable thing about this scene is that Tori has a cell phone. Sure, it's huge, but this was filmed in 1991. I didn't even own a pager until 1999.
If the apocalypse comes, beat me.
Rounding out the rest of the Scooby Gang are Nathan's little brother Alex and his best bud Ozzy. Alex is played by Robert Gorman, who was 11 at the time of filming. The San Francisco 49ers hat he wears was his own that he requested to wear in the movie. Gorman was a popular kid actor in the 90s. He was in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, Mr. Nanny, and Sometimes They Come Back. This guy is a year older than me, and I still think of him as a kid. Mark Holton plays Ozzy. He was in Teen Wolf 1 and 2, Gacy, and Rumpelstiltskin, which was also directed by Mark Jones. But what you really need to know about this guy is that he's a thief. First, he steals Pee-wee's bike, and then he steals one of Lep's gold coins. Holton was known for yelling "cut" or "that's a wrap" on set, causing everyone to start packing up. They should have gotten him back by switching out that gum he's chewing with some from Pee-wee's stash. In the original shooting script, Ozzy was going to carry a frog around with him in his pocket. Jones nixed the idea because it would have been too difficult to wrangle a frog in all of Ozzy's scenes. Holton reprised the role of Ozzy in Leprechaun Returns. Alex and Ozzy have arrived to help Nathan paint the house. You can see Jones's cartoon influences in the color palette of the film, the blue and red paint on the house, the vibrant costumes, and the bright pops of color in the backgrounds. It's easy to get hung up on the little details, like how these painters are horribly inefficient at their jobs, or the rainbow that leads Ozzy and Alex to a pot of gold. But when you remember that this is intended to be a live-action cartoon, it all makes sense. All the commotion wakes Lep up from hibernation. Ozzy brushes the clover off the crate, and our boy Lep smashes out of it like a mini-Hulk. Finally, we get our first look at that adorably repulsive face. Gabe Bartelis did an incredible job with the makeup effects. Bartelis designed the look of the leprechaun to evolve over 3 stages. Each stage is progressively more aggressive than the last. In this first stage, he has an adorable button nose and a rounded chin. As the film progresses, the nose becomes more hooked and the chin protrudes. Bartelis designed the makeup with Davis in mind. He didn't want the prosthetics to hinder the actor's performance. The makeup took 3 hours to apply and another 40 minutes to take off. The two have spent many hours together over the years and are the only 2 people to work on all of the first 6 Leprechaun movies. Before Leprechaun, Bartelis had already cultivated an impressive horror resume. His first credited makeup effects role was Spookies. He also played one of the farting muckmen in the film. Additionally, he worked on Friday the 13th Part 6, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and provided makeup effects on a number of Frank Henenlotter films like Basket Case 2 and Frankenhooker. Though I'd say his greatest claim to fame was creating everyone's favorite dong-shaped parasite Aylmer for brain damage. Anyway, poor Lep has been imprisoned in a foreign country for 10 years and he's hungry, so he snacks on a bug. But don't worry, the director is an animal lover, so the bug he eats was just candy, and the tarantula hanging out in the basement was treated very well. Since Lep doesn't have his gold, he's weak. But does he complain? Does he start attacking people? No. He introduces himself like a proper gentleman.
Why, I'm a leprechaun, a shoemaker by trade. And speaking of shoes, yours could use a shine.
All Lep wants is his gold, but Ozzy just takes off running. He must be prejudiced against the Irish. Maybe I'm biased because my dog's Irish, but I think that's messed up. They're lovely people. Then Ozzy sees a rainbow and he and Alex follow it to an old abandoned truck where they find Lep's bag of gold coins. Now, if I found that, I would have returned it to the nice Irish gentleman that offered to shine my shoes. Instead, Ozzy ends up swallowing one of the coins and Alex hoards the rest. He wants to use it to pay for an operation to fix Ozzy's brain.
We can get you an operation.
For what?
To make you smart.
Trimark wanted this scene removed because they felt that it was disrespectful to people with mental disabilities. I'm glad Jones was able to keep it in. It's an innocent idea that shows the love between these 2 friends. Alex tries to appear grown up throughout the movie.
Boy, I could go for a beer right now.
Alex wanting to get Ozzy an impossible operation reminds us that he's just a kid. He says that he doesn't believe in magic, but this innocent wish reveals that he wants to. Innocence aside, this is a terrible plan. The last time I saw someone try this, James Bond ended up turning Rex Manning into the Lawnmower Man.
Oh, Rexy, you're so sexy.
Meanwhile, Tori is flaunting her sweet LA Gear sneakers in front of Lep, who's hiding out under the truck. Naturally, Lep tries to touch them, but Tori thinks it's just Nathan getting smoothie with her, even though she just saw him by the house. She finally realizes that it's not Nathan and screams, scaring the little rascal away. You'll notice a lot of close-ups of shoes throughout the movie. The camera is giving us Lep's point of view. He's obsessed with shoes, and some nice kicks are featured. In addition to those sweet LA Gear sneakers, there are Tori's purple heels, Ozzy's Chuck Taylor All-Stars, and Alex's Reebok pumps. None of these brands sponsored the movie, but they each get a thank you in the credits. Lep hides in a hole and meows like a cat, clearly disoriented from his confinement. JD, being an idiot, shoves his hand into the dark hole, and naturally the hungry Lep takes a bite out of him. Seriously, dude? That would have happened even if it was a cat. Or you would have gotten a cat jump scare. At any rate, Nothing good comes from sticking your hand in random holes. Everyone piles into the truck and they drive JD to the emergency room. Originally, Lep was supposed to remain under the truck. Then when the truck leaves, he's run over and buried in the dirt with tire tracks imprinted over his body. They filmed the stunt with Davis buried underground with a tube to breathe through. Unfortunately, Trimark cut the scene because they thought it was too cartoony. Curse you, Trimark! Lep finds a tricycle in the shed and rolls out on the first of his many toys in the movie. You might recognize the hospital the gang pulls up to. It was also used as a location in Halloween 3. We'll be visiting another Halloween 3 location later in the movie. Alex and Ozzy pop into the coin shop to have one of Lep's coins authenticated.
What's it worth?
It could be priceless.
In a movie about a leprechaun, this is the hardest thing to believe. Let's try that again.
I need $50 for it.
$50?
The creepiest thing in this shop is this dummy that changes position in between shots.
Ew, dummy.
The guys leave and Lep shows up to reclaim his coin, and since he's a gentleman, he takes time out of his busy day to teach the shop owner some manners.
It's not nice to steal gold coins from a leprechaun. Bad shop owner.
That's what you get. Well, that and a pogo stick. As much fun as the toys are, they weren't easy to operate. The stunt double was only able to get 2 jumps in, so the scene was slowed down to make it look like more. Trimark also ordered insert shots to make the scene gloriously gory. And you know what Lep does? He polishes the dead man's shoes. Class act all the way.
Can't have dirty shoes now, can we?
And what's that? A new toy?
Yeah, boy!
The coin shop used to be next to the cafe we see here. They've since merged, and the door to the coin shop is now the entrance to the diner. The Saugus Cafe is still standing. It's over 130 years old and is said to be the oldest restaurant in Los Angeles County. The inside of the diner is full of cast and crew. There's director Mark Jones in the rainbow hat sitting beside co-producer David Price. Directly behind the director's head is Warwick Davis. Davis's wife Sammy is sitting at the next table over. The guy with a ponytail across from her is Davis's best friend Daniel, who is visiting from England, and next to him in the black hat is Gabe Bartelis. Davis wasn't seated with them because the production was worried that audiences might recognize him as the Leprechaun. Right, because these two gents look so much alike. Lep is cruising down the highway when he gets pulled over. Sure, that sweet ride probably isn't street legal, but this cop is more concerned that some kid is out past his bedtime. So not your jurisdiction, dude.
Say, aren't we a little young to be out this late?
I'm 600 years old.
Here it comes!
Okay, smartass.
Big mistake. Big. Huge.
Why don't you take that ridiculous mask off and step out of the car?
It's not nice to make fun of a leprechaun.
Lep grabs him by the face and disarms the ill-mannered popo, tossing the gun into the street. Originally, Lep dropped the cop and the scene ended there. Trimark wanted more action, so the scene was extended with Lep chasing the cop through the woods. Lep jumps out from behind a tree like he's the frickin' Wolfman, and we can see that his makeup has evolved into stage 2. The lines on his face are much more severe. Is it just me, or does the 2010 Wolfman remake owe Leprechaun some royalties? Levy Isaacs did a fantastic job with the cinematography. The movie was shot on 35mm film with Panavision cameras. This provided lots of texture and color and gives the film a nice touch of grain that I appreciate. After a game of hide and seek, the copper hunkers down by a tree. You can see his breath here, and that's real. The movie was filmed in October, and the cast and crew were freezing. Thankfully, Lep shows up to warm the copper's neck and give him a well-deserved break.
Now that was fun.
But Lep can't rest long. He's gotta find his gold. He heads back to the O'Grady farm and begins ransacking the kitchen. There's a lot of misinformation about Leprechaun online. One of the biggest myths about the movie is that the box of cereal Lep finds was originally a box of Lucky Charms. The rumor goes that General Mills was so upset that Lep spit their cereal out that they demanded to have their brand removed from the film. Many believe that the line about Lucky Charms at the end of the film was added as a retort from the director. None of this is true. The box of cereal was always Lucky Clovers, and the line in question was in the original 1988 script. What I really want to know is, why is he eating a cereal called Lucky Clovers in the first place? You know clovers are bad for you, Lep! Davis was given free rein on how he wanted to play the character. The scene of him rummaging through the kitchen was largely improvised, as was his adorable reaction to seeing his reflection for the first time. It was so funny that Jones threw in this close-up of Lep admiring his ghoulishly handsome mug. Lep doesn't find his gold. Instead, he finds a bunch of filthy shoes, and being the sweetheart that he is, he gives them a good polish. Tori's purple pumps have never looked better.
Oh my god.
Lep also made a Dagwood sandwich out of motor oil and nails, but sadly Trimark had the scene cut. Curse you, Trimark! The gang returns, and instead of being grateful that their shoes are so shiny, they're upset about the mess.
Well, it could have been a bear.
Bears steal your picnic baskets. They don't shine your shoes. Then they hear a bike bell ringing. The camera pushes in to show that the bell is ringing on its own, but for some reason Nathan is convinced that the sound is coming from the kitchen. He turns to find that the others have followed him, and Tori gives her best Shaggy impression.
We're like, really scared.
Nathan's bad hearing takes him outside, where he doesn't find a bear, but he does stumble into a bear trap. You might notice that the length of Lep's legs changed during this scene. Davis did most of his stunts for the film, namely because it's challenging to find a double that matches his size. Unfortunately, during filming, the actor came down with a lung infection, and the production filmed what they could with a double. Davis dubbed his lines over the scenes once he had healed. The taller double dancing around Nathan is actor Deep Roy, best known for playing the Oompa Loompas in Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Ever so helpful, Lep offers to free Nathan, first by offering to amputate, and then by trying to bite the leg off. That stethoscope looks official enough to me, but Nathan isn't convinced, and instead, he and the others proceed to beat poor Lep with anything they can get their hands on. This kind of brutality is exactly why leprechauns are a protected species in Europe. Alex runs to get the shotgun while Ozzy calls the cops. The sheriff is played by the late William Newman. He was a great character actor who appeared in The Stand, Silver Bullet, and Squirm. In the background, you'll see producer David Price again playing a deputy. You can also see Price and Mark Jones on the wanted poster by the sheriff's chin. I'm willing to bet they're wanted for inciting violence against leprechauns. Anyway, Nathan shoots Lep and knocks him back. For this dangerous stunt, a double was attached to a harness then yanked back. The stunt was performed by Tony Cox, best known for Bad Santa and Me, Myself, and Irene. He makes an on-camera appearance in Leprechaun 2. Nathan must have missed, because when they go back to find Lep's body, he's nowhere to be found.
No way. I shot it. I put 6 rounds into that thing.
I swear I've seen this before.
I shot him 6 times!
Alright. The gang attempts a getaway in the trunk, but when it won't start, Lep leaps out from under the hood and smashes through the windshield. Deep Roy broke his wrist performing the stunt. Tori burns Lep with a cigarette lighter, but Lep is more durable than the Energizer Bunny.
Still going.
He retreats to the barn where he builds a new vehicle strong enough to flip the truck over in a stunt that broke coordinator Cole McKay's nose. I'm starting to think the only person who didn't get hurt in this movie was Warwick Davis. They should have let him do all the stunts.
Where are you going, friends?
Lep just wants to play, but the gang rudely slams the door on him, severing his hand. It's cool, Lep. Slap a chainsaw on that bad boy and you're good as new.
Groovy.
The phones are dead, but thankfully Tori is from LA. I'm guessing she went to Bayside, and like Zach Moore, she has one of those fancy new mobiles. Side note, the same actor that played Tori's dad also played Zach's dad, so they might even be related. She calls in the cavalry and a few more Easter eggs. The man wearing the cowboy hat is assistant director Adam Taylor, who sadly died in an accident just 1 year after the film was released. The sheriff calls the deputy we saw earlier, and we find out that he's named after executive in charge of production, David Trippett. Deputy Trippett is still on break, so Lep is covering for him.
If I need backup, I'll call it in.
The reason Lep is in the driver's seat is that there was a scene of Lep driving back to the O'Grady farm and eating donuts that Trimark cut. Curse you, Trimark! Another reoccurring theme in this movie is magic. Everyone has seen the leprechaun, but none of them are willing to admit it.
It is not a leprechaun, damn it!
Well, everyone except Ozzy. To prove his point, he lets it slip that he and Alex found the bag of gold coins.
We were gonna save it to get Ozzy an operation. To fix his brain.
You can't fix Ozzy's brain.
I know that. but he doesn't.
Alex is quick to deny his wish because he wants to appear grown up. Nathan relies on Alex for everything from painting houses to fixing the truck. Alex has had to grow up fast, and for him that means denying magic.
And right after that, Ozzy, I'll be sure to ground myself for 2 weeks.
Ironically, Alex wants to make Ozzy smarter, but Ozzy is the only one in this movie that knows what they're really up against. He believes in magic, and if the others want to survive the night, they'll need to do the same. Tori may not believe in magic, but she knows Lep wants that gold and heads out to retrieve it from the well. Nathan tries to be all macho and goes to back her up, but he's all kinds of messed up.
You sit the fuck down!
He hands her the gun so she can final girl up.
You ever worked one of those things before?
Nope.
And that's the truth. Aniston had never even cocked a gun before. The director showed her how, and she caught on quickly, resulting in her most badass moment in the film. Lep shows up, and we can see that he has evolved to his final form.
Oh, crap!
His makeup is full aggro at this point.
This is what you're looking for, right?
Me powers are returning.
There is truly nothing more heartwarming than seeing a leprechaun reunited with his gold.
Me golden delicious gold.
They're magically delicious.
Lep is so happy that he even gives Tori a little smooch. Then he hunkers down to count his stash and discovers that he is 1 coin short. Most people would have counted the cash or the drop-off, but Lep's just too trusting. Good thing he has his magic back. He pops out of the fridge and tussles with Alex. Alex is able to hold his own with Lep. Gabe Bartalos believes that this is part of why Leprechaun appeals to kids. He's a villain that they can meet at eye level. Then we come to the scene that Jones storyboarded, securing him the director position. This scene feels right out of Scooby-Doo.
You should have picked door number 2, me lad.
Well, that is until Lep grabs Nathan by the dong. Hey, what can I say? Lep probably thought Nathan was smuggling his coin down there. Dudes shove weird things down their pants. Nathan is understandably perturbed at having his pecker plucked, so he shoots Lep in the head.
We got the sucker.
Davis did the stunt himself and delivers an impressive bump considering he didn't even have a crash mat to fall back on. Thankfully, Lep is no zombie, and it's gonna take more than a bullet between the eyes to keep him down.
Not a chance, me lad.
But is Lep sore about it? Nah, he entreats them to some skateboarding hijinks. Not that no-fun Nathan could appreciate it. He keeps blasting that shotgun like he's Elmer Fudd. You think he would have figured out by now that bullets aren't all that effective against leprechauns? The phone rings and it's Lep demanding his money.
Where's the money?
Tori responds the same way I do when a debt collector calls. But that's not about to stop Lep, who takes AT&T's old slogan literally.
Reach out and touch someone.
Mark Jones says that the phone gag was never intended to be an homage to A Nightmare on Elm Street. The effect was created using a foam rubber hand that Bartalos operated with a cable off screen. Ozzy is prepared to offer himself and the gold coin in his gut up to the leprechaun, but Tori insists that they find another way. Tori decides to head out to the retirement home to see if that rat bastard Dan O'Grady can tell them how to stop the leprechaun.
We're going on a field trip.
Of course, Lep isn't about to let that happen, but the gang is prepared. They chuck a bunch of shoes at him, and poor Lep can't help but shine every single one of them.
Shiny, shiny.
Trimark wanted to cut this scene, but Jones fought hard to keep it in the movie, and I'm glad. Lep's compulsion to shine is his most adorable personality quirk. Tori speeds away, but Lep is hot on her tail. Unfortunately, skates were probably not the best choice. He blows through a fence and leaves an impact silhouette like he's Roger Rabbit. As a former derby girl, I can sympathize. It's not easy to skate on gravel no matter how good you are on skates. Davis is actually a speed skater and was wearing his own skates for the scene. He did this stunt himself and said that the road was particularly rough, so the wheels didn't roll very well, and when he got to the gravel, he had to run over it to reach the fence. Tori arrives at Chillview Center, and we see the same doors that Tom Atkins as Dr. Chalice ran out of in Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. She runs in and sneaks a peek at the patient list to find O'Grady's room. This was an insert that Trimark requested. Speaking of Trimark, the sleeping guard is executive of production, David Trippett, the same one that the deputy that got his neck snapped was named after. As Tori makes her way through the retirement home, we're treated to some Dutch angles. The scenes were filmed in an out-of-news hospital. I half expected Tori to run into Michael Myers. Instead, she finds the shadow of the leprechaun that turns out to be a bunch of old cleaning supplies. Jones said this gag was borrowed right out of Scooby-Doo. Of course, outside of cartoons, it's impossible to arrange brooms to look like a leprechaun, so Warwick Davis stepped in to create the shadow. Tori finds O'Grady in his room. Sitting in the wheelchair wearing a wig is producer Michael Prescott, who appeared in the diner scene earlier, seated behind Nathan. But psych, that's not Rat Bastard O'Grady. That's a leprechaun. The chair was the most challenging of Lep's vehicles for Davis to operate, namely because the chair was too big for him and he was wearing gloves. Aniston had to run in slow motion just so he could catch up to her. The footage was shot at a lower frame rate and sped up to make it look as though he was moving faster than he was. Tori escapes into an elevator that was not actually in the hospital. It was built in the barn on the O'Grady farm. Then Rat Bastard O'Grady drops down from the ceiling. Actor Shay Deffin was held upside down to film the scene. The most amazing thing about this is that his wig is defying gravity. He must have used Gorilla Glue.
My hair, it don't move.
O'Grady tells Tori that she's gonna have to use a 4-leaf clover if she wants to kill the leprechaun.
To touch him.
Tori slams on the gas with the rag top down so her hair can blow and drives to a clover patch on the O'Grady farm. The clover patch was grown for the film and was lit with green light to make it stand out. Aniston sprained her ankle while filming this scene, so stunt double Denise Lynn Roberts is running here. Roberts was famous for her work on Star Trek, but horror fans will know her from Species, Death Becomes Her, and Return of the Living Dead 3. Roberts sadly passed away after a long battle with cancer in 2003. Tori runs to the cop car and finds the body of Deputy Trippett. She then uses his baton to stab out Lep's eye. Davis is acting with one eye here as Portella's glued a patch over his other eye with the nub of the baton on it. But it's cool. Leprechauns are like NECA figures. They have interchangeable parts. Which reminds me, the people need a leprechaun figure, NECA, and don't forget to include all of its vehicles. Lep gets shot again, so you know that means Nathan has shown up. Seeing Lep like this always gets me.
Poor little bugger. He's so small. He's like a dog or something.
With Lep knocked out, Ozzy, Nathan, and Tori are able to hunt for a 4-leaf clover.
Forget it. We're not gonna find it.
You can too find it. You just gotta believe.
This brings us back to the theme of magic. She can't defeat a magical creature if she doesn't believe in it. Tori succumbs to the teachings of Master Ozzy, and just like magic...
You found one! I told you! I told you!
Meanwhile, Alex tries to set a trap for the leprechaun when Lep shows up and attacks him. The rest of the gang arrives and Ozzy tells Lep that he swallowed the coin.
Then it's your belly I want.
Lep chases Ozzy down and slices him up with a shoe buckle. Though I do hold a soft spot for Lep, I hate seeing Ozzy beat up. Good thing Alex comes to the rescue looking like a pissed off Dennis the Menace.
Fuck you, Lucky Charms.
Trimark hated that line, but thankfully Mark Jones fought to keep the crowd-pleasing moment in the film. Lep swallows the clover that causes his body to melt from the inside like something out of a Cronenberg film. To create the effect, Davis wore an acrylic jawbone and had several tubes superglued to his body. Slime and cigar smoke were blown through the tubes to create the illusion. Jones wishes he had made the well look older and more weathered, and I have to agree. That thing looks like it was built yesterday. The gang shares a heartwarming moment, forgetting the final rule of Scream.
This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare.
A puppet was used for this scene that Warwick Davis operated from within the well. Nathan knocks Lep back with the butt of his favorite toy and sets the well on fire, resulting in an epic explosion that's even more impressive considering the film's limited budget. We end on a sickeningly gorgeous crane shot of the sunrise and our weather-worn heroes standing to greet the cavalry.
You're late, you fucking dickheads!
And don't get too broken up over Lep's fate. The voiceover at the end lets us know that he'll be back soon enough.
I'll not rest till I have me gold. Curse this well that me soul shall dwell, till I find me magic that breaks me spell.
Davis was happy to do the voiceover because it hinted at a sequel and he was hoping to play the Leprechaun again. If you sit through the credits, you'll notice that George Lucas and Vice President Dan Quayle receive a special thank you. Lucas because he gave Warwick Davis, who was under contract with him, permission to appear in the movie. Quayle because his office sped up a working visa so that Davis could come over from Britain. So that was Leprechaun, the simple tale of a shoemaker done in by his obsession with gold, and an LA girl that found magic and friendship in a small town in North Dakota. Filming wrapped in December of 1991, but the movie wouldn't be released for another year. Trimark delayed the release to launch an ambitious marketing campaign. Lep rang the opening bell for the American Stock Exchange, and the NBA sponsored Leprechaun Nights. The producers also persuaded individual Domino's and Subway franchises to promote the movie. Leprechaun opened to 620 theaters on January 8, 1993. With a budget of just under $1 million and a box office of $8.6 million, the film was a financial success. It brought in $2.5 million in just its opening week. Critics hated the film. The Chicago Tribune wrote that it brought new meaning to the term bad. Not much has changed, as even modern critics like to dunk on the movie, with Flavor Wire writing,
"The basic problem with Leprechaun is that it's just not scary, not even a little bit."
Jones says people like to mock the film, but there is an audience that gets it.
Then there was a real fan base that understood what I was doing, which I never took myself serious. It was a fun little movie. I wasn't trying to make a, Exorcist or some Rosemary's Baby.
Vidmark released Leprechaun on VHS in April of '93, and it sold over 100,000 copies. The following year, Jennifer Aniston became a household name with the premiere of Friends. Due in part to her success, Leprechaun became a popular video rental. Aniston has tried to distance herself from Leprechaun. She told Howard Stern that she felt like she finally arrived when she got the part, but her beginnings as an actress embarrassed her. This is what embarrasses her? Girl, you danced in front of a McDonald's and Mac and Me. As for Warwick Davis, he went on to star in 5 Leprechaun sequels. He went to Vegas, Space, and The Hood twice. He's proud of the movies, but he took a step back from horror while his kids were growing up, though he did make an exception for Gabe Bartelis. The now renowned makeup artist has since directed 2 films, Skin Deep and St. Bernard. Davis makes an appearance in both of them. Now that Davis's youngest child, Harrison, is over 18, there is a possibility that he will step into Lep's buckled shoes again. Darren Lynn Bozeman, the director best known for Saw 2 through 4, has been talking about making a Leprechaun movie for the past 10 years. He wants to send Lep back in time to the gold rush. His one condition is that Davis reprises the role. He tweeted Lionsgate last year that if Spiral was a hit, he wants them to let him take a crack at Leprechaun. I for one am game. I thought Lyndon Porco was great in Leprechaun Returns, but it would be something special to see Davis as Lep again. I'm a big fan of Davis, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him star in the Willow TV series set to premiere on Disney Plus later this year. Leprechaun is 100% a B movie. Sure, Leprechaun may not be on the same level as Freddy, Jason, or Michael, but this is by no means a so bad it's good film. The movie accomplishes exactly what it set out to. It's a fun creature feature that is accessible to kids without ever being scary enough to traumatize them.
I'm the Leprechaun. Don't try and steal me, pot of gold. Pixie dust, all right? Pixie dust. Pixie dust.
If you're a fan of Scooby-Doo, the humor should be right up your alley. This movie is so much fun to watch on St. Patrick's Day, so depending on your age, grab a Shamrock Shake or crack open a Guinness and throw this puppy on. Of course, if you're a B-movie fan like myself, this is one you need to add to your collection. Unfortunately, Lep has yet to get the Blu-ray love he deserves. In the US, you can only find it in a box set with the first 7 movies in the franchise. There are 2 great commentary tracks, one with Warwick Davis and another with Mark Jones and Gabe Bartelis, that are worth checking out. There is also some behind-the-scenes footage and a featurette. That said, it's weird that this film has never gotten a solo Blu-ray release. Mark Jones still has the footage that Trimark cut from the picture, and I would love to see a director's cut restored. Well, that's it for me, witches. I want to thank the B-Movie Coven for supporting this show and welcome our newest members, Haunted by Horror and Wiccabear. This episode is dedicated to Coven Elder Zigma for requesting this review. If you like this video, please hack that thumbs up button, and for more gory goodness, subscribe and ring that bell. And until we meet again, never touch a leprechaun's gold. and blessed be.
Jesus, woman, would you not give us a pint? Can you not see the tongues hanging out of me with the thirst?
All right. Here you go, you booze hound.